Good evening, good evening, good evening. With me this evening on Track and Field Business Uncut is quarter miler, outstanding quarter miler, Sanjay Air. But before we go any further, I just want to apologize for the late start. You know, it happens sometimes. So I just want to apologize for that. And we're going to get right into it, Sanjay. Sanjay, tell me about you as a little boy, which parish you're from, and how you started in track and field. Let's start talking about your early days, your very early days, a little boy.
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica, and I started out playing football at age 7 at Unity Prep. Then I went on to Mavisville Prep. When I got to Mavisville Prep as a football player, the track and field coach there at the time, Mark Sinclair, asked me to come out and do track and field. Um, Went out for track and field, and in my first year as a track and field athlete running at the prep champs while at Mavisville, I finished second in the 100 and 200 meters at the prep champs. And I won the long jump, and Mavisville won the 4x1 and the 4x4. So I think at that prep champs, I won 5 medals. And then that's where I really realized that, track and field is something that could possibly change my life one day.
Was there any inspiration from anyone, or it was just sports day that brought you out?
Well, I was always very athletic as a kid. My mom put me in swimming at a young age. My dad put me in football. Um, I was always the self-motivated as a youngster to play sports and to be a good athlete. So I didn't really have any early inspiration at that age at 10, 11. I just wanted to have fun and just be the best athlete I could be. I was very competitive.
Okay, let us talk about you going into high school. Research show, and a little birdie told me, and I want you to confirm that you attended Excelsior and Calabar High School. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, well, actually, I attended 3 high schools while living in Jamaica, but I spent most of my time at Calabar. So I did 3 years at Calabar, um, from 1992 to 95. Then when I left Calabar, I went to Hydel High School for 1 year. I was at Hydel from 95 to 96. Then I left Hydel, and then I finished high school at Excelsior for 1 year. So most people would have remembered me from Calabar because I was there for the longest, and then Excelsior because that's where I finished high school.
Tell me a little bit about those movements and the transition. Generally, people would move from other schools to schools like Calabar, especially if they want to develop their track and field career. You did it in the reverse. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, for me, my journeys, took me, to those 3 high schools for different reasons. Calabar, I had passed my common entrance at the time. I don't know what they call it now. I think
It's now
I,
called PEP. PEP.
it's now
PEP.
called PEP.
Yeah, it's now
Yeah.
called PEP.
Okay. So yeah, so I did, common entrance, and I passed for Calabar. Spent 3 years at Calabar, but after being at Calabar for 3 years, it was tough, making the track and field team. I went from being the prep champion to when I got to Calabar. Calabar had a fantastic class 3 team that won everything at champs, and I couldn't break onto the team. Um, so first form, second form at Calabar, and by my third form year, I wanted the opportunity to be able to compete again for track. I was discouraged from my first form year that I couldn't make the team. So I went to Hydel, which was a junior. It was a junior high school at the time, private high school. So when I went to Hydel, I ran at the privatized champs. Back then, Heidel didn't run at boys champs, in the mid 90s. They had their own league and they competed at privatized champs. So did privatized champs at Heidel, and I won the 100, the 200, and the long jump. So I was a triple gold medalist. And then after that, I kind of realized that if I wanted to make an impact in high school track and field, I needed to run at champs, and Heidel didn't offer that to me. My mother was a Excelsior past student, and the first thing to say is, hey, let's go to my alma mater, So I ended up at Excelsior, because my mom enrolled me, and got to Excelsior. Started running. Desmond Price was the coach there. I didn't know much about the track team. I know the great 400-meter runner Gregory Horton was a past student, because the year before I got there, I remember watching him run at the Olympics, and I was like, oh, Gregory went to Excelsior. So when I got there, I told the coach, I could run, and got on the team, and the rest was history. Ran at Excelsior, dominated in the 400, dominated as a junior athlete for the Jamaican national team. I didn't run at champs while at Excelsior. The reason why I didn't run is ISSA had a rule back then that if you transferred from one high school to another,
you have to wait.
You have to wait a year,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to wait a year anymore. So I just took off and migrated to the States, and I finished my last year of high school in America at DeWitt Clinton High School. When I got to the US, that's where things really took off for me as a high school superstar. I was the high school athlete of the year in the US in 1999, both indoor
Before
and outdoor.
before we get to your high school overseas, I want to pull you back a little bit to Jamaica.
Sure,
Of the
sure.
three high schools that you attended,
Yeah.
which would you claim as your alma mater? I know that you've been to all three, but which of them you've had more success and you would claim as the high school
More
that,
more success as an athlete
as an
or
athlete, yes.
absolutely Excelsior. Absolutely Excelsior. Everybody who knows me from high school days know me as an Excelsior athlete that I ran for Excelsior. Nobody knew that I competed for Calabar because I never made the track team. I went there as a great athlete from prep school, and I couldn't break into the track team because of the fantastic class 3 team that I had at the time. So, I
Okay.
spent my most years at Calabar, but, obviously I got my break as a junior athlete competing for Excelsior High School. Yeah. But
Let's
in
talk.
terms of preference,
Mhm.
I don't have any preference, to any of the 3 schools. I love all 3 schools dearly.
Great, great.
They played a great upbringing in my life. Yeah.
Okay, so as we fast forward to you migrating overseas, how did your preparation or the development in Jamaica help you to go forward overseas?
So by the time I got to the States, I was already a highly developed high school athlete. I had went to the Carifta Games, and I won the Carifta Games in the 400. Um, I went to the Pan Am Games in '97, and I think I finished third in the 400, and we got third in the 4x4. I was 16 at this time. Um, so by the time 1999 rolled around, you know, I won the indoor and the outdoor high school U.S. national championships. And then I won the Carifta Games in Martinique. Then I went on to the Junior Pan American Games in Tampa, Florida, and I won the 400 and the 4x4. I'm still the only Jamaican male 400-meter runner to have won the 400 and the 4x4 at the Pan American Games. No other junior athlete has done that, since me.
Beautiful.
in
I,
1999.
yes,
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen your CV. I've seen your resume.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
outstanding. As a
yeah.
junior athlete, before we get on to college or pro, as a junior athlete, how were you able to balance your responsibilities for academics and sport?
I think for me, I was always very, self-motivated to be academically inclined, um, and be, athletic gifted and carry my talent. From a very young age, my dad instilled in me, being educated and what education, could do, for my life in the future. So the academic part was always first for me. Track and field was the secondary. I kind of it's going to take me to the next step, in life. But I was always about the academics, Yeah.
Great. I love to hear that. I love to
Yeah.
hear that. But tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about your transition before we get to college and high school. Going into college or pro, where did you go from there after finishing high school and doing all these great things for track and field?
So after, can you hear me?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So after high school, I went to Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. I was a full scholarship, track and field athlete. Um, the transition was good for me because I went to Auburn as the top 400-meter U20 runner in the world, you know. So as soon as I got there, I hit the ground running. I won the SEC indoor 400-meter title as a freshman. I was the SEC athlete of the year for the indoor season. So it was a smooth transition for me. I know a lot of collegiate runners, their freshman year is always tough because of the transition for high school. But I could truly say I didn't have an issue with transitioning. All 4 years of college was superb for me as an athlete.
Wow, you're one of the lucky ones because I've heard a lot of stories, that as you said, the early years tend to be very tough for some people, coming from another culture, from
Yeah,
Jamaica into the
yeah,
American culture and adapting to everything. So it was kind of different. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that
yes,
for
yeah.
you. Do you think that because you were already in the American system, that made it easier for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. So me finishing my last year of high school kind of, you know, enabled me to really get cultured, to the American culture. So I wasn't homesick, you know what I mean? I knew what America was like before going into college, And another thing that also helped me too, that most Jamaican athletes, when they leave Jamaica to go to college, back in my era, they had to go to junior college first. They had to spend 2 years in junior college. And I know the junior college system, a lot of the junior colleges, they don't have the financial resources. So a lot of good high school athletes that had to spend time in junior college, they fell by the wayside. It's kind of like the system weeded them out. And then, they went to college to finish up their junior and senior year. With me, I had a little bit of the culture early, that first year before college. And then I went to university for all 4 years, to compete. So yeah,
So some people, and I'm glad you say that because I was just about to ask you about what kind of challenges. We all have challenges. Were you
yeah,
faced with any challenges at
yeah,
all?
yeah, yeah,
Tell me a little
absolutely.
bit about those challenges and how you overcome.
Challenges. Are you talking about high school, my last years in high school, or when I got to university?
Both, a little bit of both, yeah.
Okay, so toughest challenge, when I migrated, to the United States, I came by myself. I came by myself at 17 years old. I migrated. My parents wasn't with me. my goal was just to have a better life. You know what I mean? So I left my father's house where I had my own room, you know, to when I came to America, I was, sleeping on, the couch. I'm a family's house, sleeping on the couch. You didn't have my own space. And it was an uncomfortable situation. When you migrate and you come to a new country, it's an adjustment. But luckily I was able to get through that adjustment, the tough times. Um, my last year of high school. But then I was happy because I had a lot of success on the track. I had lot of success academically. I was a straight A student, you know. Um, and I qualified to go to a D1 university, based off my academics and my athletic accomplishment. I didn't have to go to a junior college. Back in our days, you had to have the SATs. A lot of athletes, they couldn't get enough points on the SAT to go to a D1, so they had to go junior college. So once I got to a D1 college, a top D1 college, I was well taken care of financially. So got to Auburn, did well as a freshman. My sophomore year, after the Olympics, because my freshman year, when I went to the Olympics, everything went well. But my sophomore year, I got injured, and I faced a lot of adversity with injury. I couldn't compete my indoor seasons for my sophomore year, and that was just a lot, just very tough for me mentally.
I'm glad that you mentioned mentally. How were you able to regroup and kept going?
Um, for me, it was more my hunger for success, because before that injury, I had a lot of success as a youngster. Going to the Olympics at 19, winning a medal at 19 at the Olympics, being the high school athlete of the year at 18. So the success that I experienced at the time when I was facing all that adversity, I was just so motivated to get back at the top or to be successful, in the sport. So that was my drive. That was my
Tra-
drive.
training
Self
in
motivation.
training in Jamaica and training abroad in college. How did your early development in Jamaica helped you while in university?
Well, the Jamaican system really help you to matriculate as an athlete. And the reason why I say that, I think in high school we trained so hard. We trained so hard in high school. I remember at Excelsior, my coach was a soldier. Desmond Price was a soldier. So we had practice 5 a.m. in the morning at the National Stadium. So getting up at four o'clock, taking the bus down Mountain View Avenue to get to stadium to train at 5. We're just so dedicated and committed to the cause. And then everything that I did at Excelsior, with the hard work, the motivation, the dedication, the commitment. Once I went to America, it was like a walk in the park. They say, hey, show up for training at 2 p.m. After training, make sure you go to study hall at 5. And so I was so already on a schedule from Jamaica days where it was just so strenuous with the training and the academics, that once I went to Auburn, it was a smooth transition.
I tell people all the time, if you go to school in Jamaica and you work in Jamaica, you can survive anywhere in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely, easily, easily.
Easily, easily,
Yeah,
easily. Let
yeah.
us step out of your college era and let us now move into professional. Tell me about adulthood in track and field.
I don't know. In the track and field was good. Um, After the Sydney Olympics, I competed at the 2001, 2003, 2005, World Championship, for Jamaica. Um, 2007, I was the 400-meter national champion. In 2005 and 2007, I was world ranked, top 10 world ranking in the 400 those 2 years. Um, I kind of felt like when I trained as a professional athlete at Auburn after college, I think my career was on the up because the system at Auburn worked well for me as a professional. When I left that system and I went to Baylor University to train, that system wasn't conducive for the type of quarter I was. I didn't have great foot speed. And when I was at Auburn, we did a lot of sprinting and it helped me. When I got to Baylor, it was more centered around a speed endurance type program. So I did well in the program, but I kind of regress in terms of the time, my personal best. My personal best didn't evolve when I went to Baylor. I still ran 44, but I didn't get better. Um, but what Baylor taught me, training with Clyde Hart and Michael Ford, it taught me a great 400-meter system. I think the system was the best system and still is one of the best systems to ever be created. Um, and being in that Baylor program that produced the great Michael Johnson and Sonia Richards and Jeremy Warner, it helped mold me as a coach, for the future. Um, and a lot of my program design and my philosophies came from training in Waco with Clyde Hart and Michael Ford. Yeah.
Every level of our life is different. I want to hear about some of the challenges that you've had at this level, adulthood in track and field. I want to hear about some of the challenges and how you were able to overcome.
I think, the main challenges that I faced as a professional was when I transitioned from my training group at Auburn to Baylor was very tough because I went from one system to another system. And my first year in the system, I struggled. So in 2005, I was running 44s in the 400 at Auburn. And then when I got to Baylor for the 2006 season, I was running 45 high 46s. And I didn't have an answer like, why am I running so slow? It was very stressful for me, because I went to Baylor with the expectation that I had a bigger name coach. I'm in a professional environment where all my training partners are professionals. When I was at Auburn, I was training with college guys and a couple pro guys, Davian Clark and Michael McDonald. So I was really expecting myself to really progress and do better, you know. So that transition, it didn't happen, and it was really stressful for me that year. But then the following year in 2007, things really got good, and I started to run 44 again at a top 10 world ranking, and then, I was the 400-meter national champion for Jamaica that year. So
You touched on something that I want you to elaborate on a little bit about changing camps, and it took you a while to get back into your rhythm, because we've had athletes who, change clubs or change coaches ever so
yeah.
often. For some people it work immediately, for some it takes a while. What was some of the things that wasn't working for you initially?
Um, from a program perspective with the training at Waco,
Hmm.
yeah, I would probably just say, you know, transitioning from a speed-based program at Auburn to going to Baylor, where it was more about speed endurance, race execution, and endurance. My body just took a while. It took 2 years to adapt to that system. It took 2 years to adapt to that system, and it was tough. And athletes go through that all the time. What I notice nowadays is like back in my era, like we were more patient, so we could have a bad year and then we'll stick it out and stay there and eventually run well. Now, in with this generation of athletes, you'll find them bouncing from camp to camp. Like if it doesn't go well, if it doesn't go well in the first year, they'll switch coaches, and then you'll find now that you have athletes that go to two, three, four coaches in a 5 year span, and you can't matriculate if you keep on changing systems.
But you know something, Sanjay, and I'm so glad you touch on this topic because sometimes we, the fans too, we are very critical of athletes when they change camp. And if it doesn't happen or continue on a successful path for them, then we become critical. We want them to go back where they're coming from. We want them to move on to someone else instead of being patient. Do you think we are too impatient as it relates to the success that an athlete can bring?
Um, let me tell you why that happens, right? And it's easy for me to explain because I came through both eras. So I came through an era as an athlete where we didn't have the internet. And now I'm in an era as a coach where we have the internet. So back in the days, fans couldn't really see what was going on in the background because the internet wasn't so accessible or wasn't accessible at all. But now the fans, they see the athletes on Instagram, they see the athletes on Facebook, constantly. If you want to know what's going on with the athlete, just jump on the internet to see what's going on. And then it makes the fans so more interested, and critical in their observation and their criticism, whether it's negative or positive. And what the fans don't know, or I'm sure they know, athletes, they watch and they look out for these criticisms, and any negative criticism an athlete get, if they're not mentally strong, it could sway their mind, you know.
Wow.
And now you start to see athletes, they'll make even mid-season changes of coaches. When I was running, you'll never see that. And I think a lot has to do with the power of the internet, the influence of the internet. Yeah.
Is it that we fans, our expectations are too brutal in the sense where if you run fast last year, we're expecting you to run fast this year, next year. A matter of fact, we're expecting you guys to run fast every time, and we're expecting you guys to win every time.
What I could tell you is Jamaican people slash fans are the hardest to please. I think that's just us as a culture. And that's what makes us great. We want the best in anything we do. Like the expectation is win, 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 or medal. You know what I mean? So I just think that's the expectation for Jamaican fans. I don't know. I don't think the fan base for the US or other countries is as intense as us Jamaicans.
No, they're not as critical as we are now.
Yes, Jamaicans, they're so critical. Like, even for example, Jamaica played Mexico in the Gold Cup yesterday,
Yesterday, yeah.
and they lost. And I went on the internet on Instagram because I'm a big Reggae Boy fan, and I saw some of the comments from the fans, and I was like, oh my God, nothing positive.
It's
But the team,
heartbreaking.
but
Yeah.
the team won 4 games in a row. Well, they tied
Yeah.
a game and they won 3 games in a row. But the one game they lost, it was like the negativity was just so much more overwhelming than the positivity when we were winning. So
It's true.
I think
Yeah.
it's just it's cultural. What I can tell athletes is just stay off the internet. Don't read.
But even if they are not reading it themselves, someone close to them is seeing
Yeah,
it and saying it to them.
Yeah.
But don't you think that we as fans, we can be a little bit more diplomatic in our comments, especially if it is somebody who is known to be winning? You're known to be doing great for the country. Why can't we be nice, with our comments when there is a loss or when there is a defeat? Why can't we comment to encourage instead of comment to discourage?
Yeah, I just think it's just cultural. I think that's how we are as a people, and I think that's what makes us great. Us Jamaicans, we're very prideful. We believe that we are the best at whatever we do. And I think, we just have to take with a grain of salt the negative and the positive, and we just have to roll with the punches, You,
During your time of competition, as you said, you didn't have social media that much. How were you able to handle negative criticism, or you did not have a lot of that too?
so we had, back when I was running, we had the internet, and we had something called this forum called the Caribbean Track Forum, or Talawa, but that was just one platform that fans could go on, and they could talk their negative or their positive. But for me, like, anytime I ran bad, I would go on there to see what they would say about me, and I would try to use that negativity fuel my fire, find it from somewhere within to motivate me to just be great. And it always worked. So what I could tell an athlete nowadays is, whenever you run bad, and if you love the internet, because we can't tell this generation to come off the internet. This
This
is
is
their
their
era.
thing. Yeah.
This is their thing. So if you're going to get on, just be ready for the negative and the constructive criticism, and find a way to fuel that energy into some positivity, and compete to the best of your ability.
Great. And with that said, I am going to get into my favorite part of an interview. You are an outstanding athlete. Your CV, your resume on the track is outstanding. Silver medal at the Olympics in Sydney, World Championship 2001, silver, World Championship 2003, silver, World Championship 2005, bronze medal, World Indoor Gold Medalist 2004, Pan Am Games Senior Gold Medal, CAC Games Gold Medal, World Junior in 1998, a bronze medal, Pan American Junior Gold, double gold at the 1999 games in the 400 and 4x4. 1997 double bronze medalist again. Carifta, 4 gold medal between 1997
1997 and
and
99.
1999, right?
Yeah.
Jamaica national champion. You have personal best in the 200, the 400 meters, the 400 indoors, 400 outdoors. You have an impressive track
Thank you.
record for Jamaica. Brilliant stuff. How do you feel being a part of Jamaica's rich legacy in Jamaica?
Oh man, it's if if anyone had told me at 15, 16, I would have had that type of track and field career, um, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it. And I still feel to this day that there's a lot that I needed to accomplish in the 400 that I didn't accomplish. I would have loved to be a 400-meter individual medalist. Um, and I think about that sometimes. I still have to live with that, I didn't win an individual medal. But then now I am retired, I look back, the people that I meet and the fans that I meet, they don't care that I didn't win an individual medal. They care that I had a consistent career, I won some medals, I am giving back to the sport greatly, I'm giving back to athletes greatly. Um, and I think with all that, before my career ended, and now that my career have ended, everything that I've accomplished, I'm so thankful that God has blessed me. You know, yeah,
You are a part of greatness for
absolutely.
Jamaica track and field. We have a rich legacy, and you are a part of that greatness. How did you know that the 400-meter was your event?
Um, it's crazy how that came about because through prep school and while at Calabar and Heidel, I was a sprinter. I was a 1-2 sprinter, and I did the long jump. And when I got to Excelsior, as soon as I got there, the coach said to me, "No, man, you're a quarter miler, you're a 400-meter runner." I was like, "Coach, what you talking about? I've been running the sprint and the long jump for the last 5 years." He's like, "Well, maybe that's why you never make it a Calabar." So, once he told me that, I said, "Okay, I'll give the 400-meter a try." And once I started running it at Excelsior and I started to win, there wasn't any turning back from then. I just kept that consistency all throughout.
You
Yeah.
know, you just mentioned something, and we are Jamaica is like a sprint country. Everybody wants to run the sprint. And we have so many athletes who have ran in different events at champs, but once they're finished with their junior career, they want to go to the sprint. So it is funny that you mentioned that your coach told you that the 400 is your event, because I interviewed someone recently. Her name is Ruth Williams Simpson. She competed back in the 70s, and
Okay,
she said she was a sprinter, and it was Mr. Herb McKinley that said to her that, look, if you want to go to the Olympics, run the 400.
the
And
400
right, and she trusted him, and she made 3 consecutive Olympic teams.
Olympics. Okay, okay,
So
yeah,
it is just so funny that coaches can look at an athlete
absolutely.
and said, this is an event for
An
you.
event that yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
How have you managed to? A lot of athletes battle injuries every day, every year, every season. How were you able to manage your injuries to have such a successful career?
Oh man, I was such a student of the game. I would sleep a lot. So I made sure I got my rest. I made sure I had the best doctors, the best chiropractor, the best trainers that I could afford. And I was blessed that, throughout my time as an athlete, I didn't have any major injuries. The only major injury I had was in 2001. So the year after the Olympics, my sophomore year in college, I tore my hamstring and it put me out for an indoor season. And then towards the end of my career in 2010, I had a severe hamstring tear at the World Indoor Championships in Doha, Qatar. And I think it was that injury that ultimately ended my career. You know what I mean? Um, but, even by Doha, you know, I already felt to myself that I had accomplished all my goals in track and field, and I was ready to walk away. So after Doha, once I recovered from my injury, I said to myself, hey, I'm going to try out for our fourth Olympics in 2012 in London. And whether I make it or if I don't, that's where I'm going to retire and walk away from the sport because I felt like I accomplished all my goals you know.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So I was lucky, long story short, I was lucky not to have any major injuries in the peak of my career, because I really took care of my body.
Wonderful. Scholarships, sponsorship, earning from the sport, gear, shoe, everything, finding the right coach. Were you
Yeah.
able to access these luxuries easily in order to condition you to get where
Yes.
you have been? Tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could say I'm truly blessed because Puma signed me at 20, 21 years old. And throughout my whole career, I was always on contract. I never lost my contract competing for Puma. I think I was out of contract after my injury in Doha. So maybe 2011 is when my contract was up. But I was able to renew my contract three times with Puma as an athlete. Um, and once I retired as an athlete, um, I was I, I'm still associated with the shoe company, so I still do work with Puma as an ambassador. Um, I have a track and field meeting that I put on each year, the Puma East Coast International Showcase.
That's your
Um,
event?
that is my event. Yeah.
Wow, we are going to
Um,
talk about that a little bit. We have to talk
Absolutely.
about that, yeah.
Absolutely. We are in our second year of the event. This year, it was the biggest high school meet in America, um, on the individual basis, and then we have the meet coming up next year. This is our third year in 2024 with a contract with Puma, to put on the meet again, and it's gonna be a bigger and better meet. Yeah,
Wow, interesting. You
yeah.
have signed contracts. Were you able to understand the details of your contracts, or you had to get external help in order
No,
to?
no. So I had a manager that negotiated my contracts. I had one manager that did all my deals. I stayed with him the whole time throughout my whole career, you know. But even with my manager, I was able to go through all my contracts and be very meticulous with understanding all the details, the bonuses, the carve outs of all my deals that I had. Um, and yeah, yeah, all my contracts, I had great input and knowledge of what was going on with them.
It's interesting that you say that because I spoke to an athlete of the year last year sometime, and he told me that he signed a contract and he did not realize what he was signing because his contract only gave him kit and no money
Oh,
in the
wow.
bank. So what I want to ask you, where did you get your knowledge from about the sport? Because there are so many youngsters out there not sure what to look for in a contract. How did
I
you
think
educate yourself?
I think I think education, being business savvy,
Mm-hmm.
during your athletic career is very, very, very important. And I could tell you this, Heather, when I was an athlete, during my career as an athlete, I was like a businessman. You know what I mean? I knew how to conduct myself business wise. I knew how to market myself business wise. I knew that once I retired as an athlete, I knew I would have went into business. You know, so I think athletes who sign contracts and they don't know what they sign, it's a reflection on them.
But you know something, I
It's a
keep
reflection on
defending
them.
them. I keep defending
I
them
don't think you
because,
should.
and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why I defend them. We go to school because we want to learn the way you're supposed to. And I am thinking that it is our responsibility to teach them because not everyone will have that innate thing to go and do the research. So I'm saying, why aren't we teaching them, especially when they get to high school? Shouldn't we be teaching them about these things, retirement, investment, negotiating a contract, those things?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why you would need the right team of people around you. If you need that type of help, you need people around you who you could trust. For me coming through, remember, I left my parents' house at a very young age. I left Jamaica at 16 by myself. I migrated to America. So I was forced into an adult role to make my decisions on my affairs, you know? So I had to make sure that whatever I was doing, whether it was financially or for my future, I knew exactly what was going on. So I was very meticulous with reading over contracts, paying attention to the details of, meet management, meet schedule, everything as it related to my career. So yeah,
How were you able to pick your team? The people who you surround yourself with, how were you able to choose those people as a youngster? Because I'm asking you this so that when the youngsters watch this video or this interview, they can get something from your experience. How were you able to choose the people who you had around you?
um, I'm a I'm a person who feeds off energy. I think if I'm going to give an athlete advice, you have to go off your energy, go off your trust for the person. You know, um, how long have you known the person for? Getting to know the person, you know, getting to know their family, their background, and a lot of times that's going to tell the tale. You know, how do they communicate? Are they trustworthy? How long have you known them? The people that I had in my career, you know, 20 years ago, those people are still in my life. I could still pick up the phone and call them for advice. So that just goes to show how much I respected them, my trust for them, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
support is very important, and
absolutely.
sport has become a big business. It is a career, and so many young athletes are being exploited because they don't know.
Exploited and manipulated, yeah,
Right, because they don't know the details of what is happening in the sport. Many of them, they don't know what they're worth,
yeah,
so they just sign anything not knowing, and then you're locked into something that, will not be beneficial to you for a year or 2 years and stuff. So I'm always defending them. Why? Because they are young.
yes,
When
yes,
I was 20, I'm going to tell you, Sanjay, when I was 20, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
yeah,
So sometimes we, as you said, we have to find ourselves in the right corner with the right people behind us. Let us talk about mental health. Mental health has become a very big part of sport discussion. How important was that for you and the support when you were competing?
wow. Again, I think in my era, we didn't have so much issues with mental health. I'm sure it was around, but because the internet wasn't as prevalent and athletes didn't have their own platform with social media, you wouldn't hear the stories of, I'm going through anxiety, mental stress, this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? So we were very mindful of that. But now in this era, because the internet is so big and everybody has a platform, mental health is really a big issue. you know when athletes are going through things, they could come out and they could say it on social media, and then you have the fans who are so critical on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It really affects athletes mentally, big time. I've seen it with athletes in my environment, how social media could affect them and affect them mentally, and that's the mental stress of the day-to-day running of the sport and what it entails. It's very stressful for them
As
you
a
know
coach, how are you? What are some of the strategies that you use to keep your young athletes grounded and focused?
Communication, that's the main thing, because especially with the male athletes, a lot of times the male athletes, when they're going through stress, they keep it inside to themselves. They don't want to tell anybody, and that's where they could crash. The females, they're a bit more emotional, and they'll tell you how they feel. They'll talk more. So you'll find that the female athletes, they don't get as stressed as the male athletes. The men, they bottle it up in, and then all hell breaks loose. But my experience as a coach, talk to your coach, talk to people who you trust, express yourself. Don't be afraid to talk about what you're going through mentally. The more you could discuss how you feeling with someone you trust is going to, greatly help the situation. And I tell my athletes all the time, hey, if you guys are going through anything mentally, come to me and talk to me about it. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do to ease that pain and reduce that mental stress.
I'm a big and this is something that I've taken on. As I told you before, I defend the athletes and stuff. Do you think our federation need to be a part of the conversation in educating the younger athletes about things like mental health, endorsement, scholarships, the media, social media, investment, retirement? Do you think we should start having that discussion?
Yeah, of course, of course. You know what I'm big on when I was competing, I was trying to get, my teammates to start an athletes union, you know. So not the early era of my career, not 20 through 24, but by the time I got to like 25 through 28 and I was old, I was more a vet, you know, I wanted to like start an athlete union so we could start engaging the federation to do more things. Athlete welfare was a big thing that I fought for with the J3A, and we didn't benefit from that. It was after I retired or towards the end of my career, the J3 started having a welfare program where athletes would get like monthly stipend. And, if you run at a certain standard, you would get this, that, and that money. But those are things that athletes like me and Gregory Horton and Davian Clark, we would fight for those things, you know. So I can tell you now, Heather, that there is more things being offered to athletes by the J3A compared to 15, 20 years ago.
I believe
And
you.
and I can tell you this, and I'm a J3A member now, and I could put this on everything. The J3A is the best sports organization in Jamaica right now.
And I believe you too on that. I will agree
There,
with you on
there
that.
is there is no sporting organization in Jamaica that is properly run like the J3A.
But there's more that we can do,
but
Sanjay. There's a
there's
lot more
absolutely,
that we
yes,
need to do because sport is now a business. It is a career. It is not amateur. We're not amateurs anymore,
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would let me
There's
tell you,
more that could be done.
yeah.
Absolutely,
As a
that's
track and
absolutely.
field, fan, one of the things that I would love to see is workshops educating our youngsters about all of these things that I just list out. We need to be having more workshops. Teach them about contract. What do you look for? Endorsements, scholarships, all those things. Our youngsters, because a lot of them, I'm listening to you, and you were very, very fortunate. As far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, you had a perfect life
I
because
would I would
everything.
say
I know you had
I
your
wouldn't say
challenges.
perfect.
I
I wouldn't
know.
say perfect, but I would say everything, it was almost perfect.
Yes, yes,
I
and
would say it was almost perfect. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I mean, because you had things falling into place as you move from one
As I
level
moved up,
to
yeah, to another level. And I could tell you
another.
this, Heather. Sorry to change the topic, but
No, it's fine.
that's kind of why I created myself and my partner Juliet Campbell. That's why we created the Puma East Coast International Showcase. We wanted to create an overseas opportunity for our Jamaica junior athletes to give them more exposure, because you run at boys champs, you run at the development meets in Jamaica, and then only the elite few would go to the pen relays with their high school. We created another international platform where you could compete against the best high school athletes US had to offer. And we came up with the concept because we wanted to give back to Jamaica. We wanted to create more international opportunities to develop our junior athletes. That's where the concept came, So it's going to take people like myself. Let's not only depend on the federation to come up with concepts. The past athletes, if you have the resources, and it doesn't have to be financial, just the expertise and the knowledge to give back, to put on workshops, camps, to create for the next generation. And that's where greatness is going to come from.
Exactly. We all need to come together and do our little part, because even though this is off track a little bit from your interview, but now that we're on the topic, I have designed or created an organization on paper that will be doing stuff like these. So I would call on people like you, Davian, who have become very good friends with all the athletes that I've interviewed so far, to get involved a certain way and, give back a little something, because at the end of the day, these young athletes, when they go out there to compete, they're competing for us. They're competing for Jamaica, one Jamaica. So, it is interesting that you say that, but I think we can do a lot more if we pool our resources.
We have to pull our resources together. We can't just depend on
one person.
One person, Like I know Davian Clark, he gives back a lot.
I know.
Sport. I know Gregory Houghton gives back a lot to the sport. Sekou Clark, Michael Clark's son, Dwight Thomas, they give back a lot to the sport. These guys are guys who were my teammates, and they're very influential in the sport now, so I just think the more past athletes and past athletic or current athletic enthusiasts that we have, just coming up with take an athlete and mentor them. What I mean?
I'm glad that you say that, because I came up with a campaign where I said I'm going to start a campaign to help athletes, and it's so funny. My tagline is each one help one.
I like that.
Yeah, that's my tagline. Each one help one. So if one person, and the thing is that we are not targeting athletes who are already established. We are looking at the athletes who cannot afford training gear or training shoes or vitamins, whatever they need. I'm saying if each of us that can help, take one person, each one help one, I think we can go a far way.
Absolutely.
I think we can go a far way. But with that said, we're going to run into retirement for you. When did you know that it was time to retire, and how did you feel retiring?
So at a very young age, I think when I made it to Sydney in 2000, my first Olympics, I said to myself, Sanjay, the goal is to make 4 Olympic Games. Try to make 4 Olympic Games. If you make your 4th Olympic game and you run well, retire. If you don't run well, retire. So I was very goal orientated early, and I kind of felt like when I got to the Olympic trials in 2012, which would have been my 4th Olympic Games, I felt like I had accomplished all my goals I need to accomplish athletically. And I was able to compete at that trials. I didn't make the team. I missed the team by 1 spot. So I missed making my 4th Olympics by 1 spot. But I felt to myself, I was done. I was so happy when I ran that last 400 at the National Stadium at the 2012 Olympic trials. When I walk off that track, I was so happy I was done with track and field, Heather. It was like
Wow.
a sign of relief, like, yes, I don't have to deal with this stress anymore. I knew it was over, and I
Wow.
was happy. I walked away with no regrets. I didn't struggle with retirement or missing the sport. It was like one of the happiest times of my life, knowing that it was over with.
It sounds to me like you had a plan. Many of us procrastinate with
Yes,
retirement, and it sounds to me, listening to you from the start until now, it sounds to me like you had a plan what your next move
yes,
was going to be. Tell me about
yes,
that plan.
yes. So I knew to myself that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. After the sport, I didn't know what kind of entrepreneur I was going to be. Um, so by 2011, I said to myself, maybe I should go into something that relates to fitness, you know. But I wanted to learn the business of fitness first. So I did my certification as a personal trainer with NASM, which is the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I did my certification. I was still an athlete. I was still an athlete. I worked part time at a gym, Lifetime Fitness. And Lifetime Fitness is one of the biggest corporate gyms in America. I learned all the business models of Lifetime. And after a year being with the gym and learning the models, I started my fitness company. The name of my fitness company is Maximum Velocity Performance Fitness. Um, and I came with the business concept, of group training, boot camps. Within the first 2 years, I had over 400 clients doing boot camps in the early 2011 through 2013. The boot camps are very popular at that time. Um, Once the boot camp business kind of slowed down, I went into corporate wellness
Mm-hmm.
where I would bid on government contracts and I'll go into corporations and implement wellness plans and wellness classes. You know, that took off. When that took off, I started to do kids camp. So I'd have summer camps and winter camps for kids. Um, with a main emphasis on speed and agility and sports performance training. And as I went along, this different aspect of fitness that's formed into my company, you know. And then once that became stable as a business, I went into different ventures with sports apparel. Me and my brother-in-law, we started a sports apparel company named Active Dreamers, where we got a licensing from the NBA to get the NBA logo on apparels. We'll have the athlete licensing for LeBron James, Steph Curry, and we'll put their image in and likeness on pillowcasing and bedding. And that company was successful, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. And then after that, during the pandemic, everything was shut down, and I was like, you know, I need to do something. What could I do when this pandemic is finished? What other business I could create? And then I came up with my own track and field league because here in DC, in the Maryland area, they shut down all track events, all sporting events during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then I started to plan that when the pandemic was over, I put on my league of track meets, and all the clients, the base of my clients came from all my clients I had before the pandemic, the lacrosse players, the soccer players, the football players. I put them in my track meet and then I'll just start advertising. And then I had my whole league of track meets in 2020 during the pandemic and 2021 when school sports were out. And that went crazy. you know I did really well with that, and from that came the idea with the Puma meet. Maybe I should start putting on international track and field meets, and yeah, that's how the Puma International Showcase came about. because of my experience being a meat promoter with the summer and the winter meets that I was putting on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
yeah, just just being a serial entrepreneur, that's coming up with ideas. And there's ventures that I've came up with that didn't hit and weren't successful, you know. But as a serial entrepreneur, as a businessman, you know, you come up with different ideas, and you just hope it stick, you
And
know.
you hope you just hope it work. And the thing is that you're giving back to a sport that
Yes.
you competed in and that you love very much, and that's a beauty. Looking back at your career, and I have this question on paper and I'm sure the answer is no, but I'm going to ask anyway. Looking back at your career, is there anything you would have done differently?
If I had to do it again,
Mm-hmm.
no way.
I knew the answer would
There's
have been no, because
there's
you've
there's
hit it correctly, accurately in
yeah.
every stage.
The only thing I could think of, and I know I mentioned this earlier, I wished I could have won an individual 400-meter medal at the World Championship or the Olympics. You know, that was a personal goal that I didn't accomplish. But as I said, when you go back and look, there are hundreds of runners that run the 400. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And now when I meet people, all they care about is, Sanjay, you know, you're Olympian, you're Olympic medalist, and I market myself on that, you know, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that helped me to be a successful businessman also, because not very often the regular Joe meet a Olympian, you know. So when I sell my business to someone, you know, that I'm an Olympian, they're gonna sign up. They're gonna sign up with me.
Immediately.
And
Immediately.
when they look me up, when they Google me and they see what I've accomplished in my career, it makes it easy for them to choose me compared to the other people that I'm going up against
You
that that don't have my resume.
I don't think you have seen your resume in full. When I was doing it last night, I was like, wow, look at this resume. You are one of the few that has done it from you were a junior all the way up at
Yeah.
every
and
level.
and I'm doing it after now as a businessman, because a lot of these guys, they have an athletic career, and when they're done with track they can't transition. I know I have transitioned well, and it's proven. Like, anybody would tell you, like, Sanjay Air has transitioned. Like,
Wow.
I am doing it, and I'm doing it, and I'm helping people along the way. You know what I
Beautiful.
mean?
Is
I'm
there
helping people along the way.
anything is there anything that you learned after you retire that you wish you had known while competing
Mm,
that you would have applied to your career then?
um, probably probably taking the sport more seriously. You know what I mean? I think if I took the sport more seriously, maybe I probably could accomplish more. But you know, when I was competing, I always looked at track and field as a means
To an end.
to an end. You know, because let me be honest, Heather, 99% of track and field athletes in every era don't make money. You know what I mean?
I was just coming
You
to
know,
that part. Yeah.
don't make any money. Yeah, I was blessed to make some money out of the sport, but I just knew to myself that when I was done with the sport, I was going to be an entrepreneur, and I was going to take my dedication and commitment as an athlete and bring it into business so I could also be successful.
But you know what I
The
want to ask? Just
yeah.
to cut you a little bit. Why is it that though you guys did not make any money? Is it that your agent or your manager or the people negotiating for you, is it that those people weren't doing the right negotiations? Or is it
Well,
that there was no money in the sport?
this is what I could say. In my era, like, I made money. The athletes in my era, we made money. This is why we made money. We had a lot of meets. We had a lot of meets. We had the Golden League, we had Grand Prix 1, we had Grand Prix 2. So mid-tier athletes could race and make a living. Lower tier athletes, there was a circuit for them where they could race and make a living. These days, you only have the Diamond League. You know what I mean? And the Diamond League is less money because in my era, the Golden League will compete and go after $1 million jackpot. And then the prize money to win a race was 16,000 to win, right? Now in the Diamond League, you know, 10, what's that? 10 years after, it's 10 grand to win the Diamond League. So the sport hasn't evolved.
What has caused that change though? Because we've had so much success over since the 21st century where people like Usain Bolt, the Jamaicans have done so well to raise the bar so high. Why is it that there's not more money
The money
into?
hasn't gotten better because the sport hasn't evolved. I think when Usain was around, and this might sound crazy, what athletes needed to do, and maybe Usain would have to be on board, we needed athletes to strike and said, hey, we're not running the worlds, we're not running the Olympics until we have athlete reform. And you know why I'm saying this, Eva, that's the only thing that could work? Is because it's the same. I work closely with NBA players, and that's what the NBA do. They have lockouts. The MLB, baseball, they have lockouts. Football, American football, they have lockouts because they have lawyers and a union. If we don't get this pay raise or this amount of money, we're not competing.
No competition.
No competition. But track and field, we don't have those caliber athletes that's making millions of dollars to hold out.
Is it because the sport is more an individual sport and not a team?
Yes, it's individual and it's not a team. It would have to be collectively as athletes. The athletes them say, yo, we're not gonna run unless, and it would have to be someone like Usain, the figurehead, to spearhead it because the sport really need him, you know? But if Usain is making $500,000 or $1 million per race, Usain not gonna strike.
There's no need for him to strike.
There's no need for him to strike because he's making money.
Wow. And I am thinking that the sport has money because when you look at a 100-meter lineup where almost all 8 women running sub 11 seconds, they're all running under 11 seconds in a 100-meter final. When you look at a country like Jamaica, we've had 5 Olympics since the start of the 21st century. Jamaica has won 4 of the 100 meters out of 5. 2 with Shelley and 2 with Elaine. We've won 4 of the 200 meter, 2 with Veronica, 2 with Elaine. No other country has done that. Jamaica has created history with a 1, 2, 3 in the women's 100, 1, 2, 3 at the World Championship and at the Olympic level. No other country has done that. So we have raised the bar at a certain level where people want to see the women's 100 meter now than any other race.
Yeah. Maybe the girls have to strike. Do you know what the prize money is for the World Championships?
I think.
Do you know the prize money breakdown?
I had it. I would have to go back and look, but I think first place got something like, was it 35,000?
So
I don't want to misquote, but I have it. I have the numbers on paper.
It's really pathetic. So if you look at it this way, right? What sport at the highest level, when you win, you're not highly financially compensated? When you win the NBA championship or the NFL Super Bowl or the MLB, athletes make a significant amount of money raising. But when you win the World Championship, I think the winner gets 70,000. Then second place is 20,000, and then you go all the way down to 8th place. It's $2,000. You get.
Yeah,
It's
Crazy.
it's you
Crazy.
can't change
But
it. Imagine making a world's finals and to get eight, you make 2 grand. You can't even 70
yeah,
grand to be the best in the world. It's not life
but you
changing.
know something, Sanjay, where are the stakeholders need to be more aggressive in demanding more purse money, because this is ridiculous. They're not earning anything. So why is it that
They need
nobody is speaking out? If you don't break a world record, you don't get $100,000. How
yeah,
many
maybe
world
because
records are we seeing at a global championship?
maybe because it's the people at the top that need to reform the sport and fight for the sport.
Yeah, but
You
if
know,
if they're paying me chicken feed and I'm not going to cry, why should they offer me more?
exactly. That's why it's the people at the bottom is the one who is being affected, and you know who is at the bottom? The athletes.
The athletes, yeah. and you
When the athletes should be at the top
and you
because
notice we come all the way back to the athletes. That is why I have to
yeah,
defend them, because I mean it's crazy, Sanjay. It's,
yeah, yeah, it is.
you
But
full a stadium. A stadium is sold out because you are there, and if you want to earn a certain amount of money, you have to break a world record. How many world records we see every day? Right now, the only two records that are being broken right now is the 400 hurdles for men and women, and the
yeah,
triple jump for women.
yeah, and I think the rule is I think you have to break the world record at a worlds. If you break it at the worlds, it's 100,000. I think if you break it at
I think if you break it at the Olympics, you got that, because I remember Beijing when Bolt broke the 100-meter record, he was given $100,000.
yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's something like that. And if you
yeah.
break it at a regular track meet, I don't think you get anything,
I think if you
or it's
break it
less.
at a Diamond League, you get it also. I think, I'm not a hundred
You
percent
think,
sure.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
yeah.
not a
I
hundred
know it's
percent
something.
sure.
I know it's something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
the sport need reform. But what I do notice though nowadays, the athletes at the top of the sport, they get in a little bit more in contract money.
Hmm.
But it's not even significant because honestly, when I was when I was running, and I had the luxury of training with two Olympic champions, Sonia Richards and Jeremy Warner. Um, they won the Olympics in the 400 meters. And I kind of have an idea of the type of money they were making on contract. And the money they're making now then is like the same money that a big athlete now is making, you know? So if you were
So
making a
so
million
there's
dollars,
no so it's not evolving.
no, if you were making $1 million back in '04 or '08 from Adidas or Nike, the athlete them nowadays them is still the same money. Them now make no 5 or 10 million off them contract.
So
It
where
hasn't.
are the
It ha-
where are the negotiators? Is it that the negotiators not doing a good job? The
there
people who
has
are
to be
negotiating for the athletes and said,
it.
okay,
The negotiators are the managers, the agents, but I think their hands are tied because when they negotiate with a meat promoter and the meat promoter or the meat director say, "Hey, I only have 5,000 for Sanjay appearance fee, and Sanjay is a Olympic champion. Our Olympic champion should be worth 50 grand for appearance fee." The agent have to take the 5 grand because if he doesn't take it, somebody else is going to get the lane.
somebody, oh wow.
Yeah. So as I said, what athletes need is a union.
Yeah.
They need a union, and you need a whole bunch of lawyers to negotiate with the IWF and the federations and say, hey, if we can't get XYZ on paper before we start, there's no running, But because track is so individualized,
Individual, yes.
I don't think it would ever happen because it's going to come down to, you know, every athlete for themselves. If there's a
True.
big power athletes who them make some money, they're not going to sacrifice their earning to go and strike. For athletes who don't make anything at all,
Yeah.
it
If
just doesn't
if
make
there's
any
no
sense.
unity, yeah, if they're not united, it won't make
You
sense.
have to be united in numbers. the U.S. athletes were trying to do that at the U.S. Championships last week. I think it was spearheaded by Shakari Richards. Yes.
Yes, I saw it, and I think that was
Yeah.
a good effort from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's see what happened with that because I know USA Track and Field they took their broadcasting off regular cable TV and
Mm-hmm,
brought it
mm-hmm.
to some streaming service, and
Yes.
the athletes wanted to know, okay, how much the streaming service paid you guys? You know, how much are we going to get into it? So um, the Americans are trying to do it. So
And this is why our athletes need to be educated about the sport. They need to know where their strength lies. They need to know their rights. I think many of them are not aware of
yeah,
their
yeah,
rights and that they do have a right to demand more.
yeah. Well, let's hope things get better.
Yes, I'm hoping because I'm always one who is advocating for the athletes. I'm not going to ask you if you miss the sport. What do you miss about the sport?
Um, Traveling.
Traveling.
I miss being able to travel to different countries all the
I've
time.
I've heard
That's
that a
one of the
lot.
that's one of the luxury of track and field. We get to tour Europe, Asia, and back then in my era again, oh my God, we were on the road all the time. We were on the road. We had the South American circuit, we had the Asian circuit, we had the European circuit. We would go to Europe right after trials, and we would not come back until October, end of September, if you were running well. Shanghai, China was the last meet. They don't have that.
Yes.
They don't have that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You know,
think a lot of them they've left for Europe, and there's a Diamond League meet coming up on the weekend. So some
on the
of
weekend,
them,
yeah.
yeah, some of them will have competition, while some will be getting ready for Budapest. But what is your most memorable moment competing for Jamaica?
My most memorable moment.
Wow, there are so
Um,
many.
so many. Um, wow. What sticks out? One of the things that I could tell you what a moment that stick out for me. Um, Being the 400-meter national champion in 2007, because it took me 8 years to win the trials.
Wow.
So as a junior, when I was a junior athlete, when I was U20, because I was so good, I would compete with the seniors. So I started trying out for the senior team as a junior athlete. I would come second and third and fourth and fifth, and I didn't win the trials until my eighth trials in 2007. I won
Wow.
the trials, and
You're
that
a
that
determined man.
I was determined. That was a memorable moment. In 2001, when I was 20, I got third. In 2002, I got close. I got second behind Michael Blackwood. I got third. I got some third places. I had to wait my turn.
So you've
2006, I
been
got third.
knocking. You were
Yeah, man, I was
knocking.
knocking, knocking, and then finally at 27 years old, I won one.
Beautiful.
And then the many relay medals. Oh man, we had so much success at the Olympics, the World
Mm-hmm.
Championship, even the
Mm-hmm.
pen relays.
Yeah.
I was on a team when we had USA versus the world. Me, Davian Clark, Jermaine Gonzalez, Michael Blackwood. We were the only 4x4 team to defeat the US at the pen relays. And the day we defeat them, it was raining, and it was 60,000 people in the stadium. The stadium was jam packed.
That's Jamaica's playground.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I tell you, I never hear the crowd so loud before. When we are take on the US, our David come through the line, the stadium erupted. I have footage of it on my Instagram. The stadium just exploded. I've never heard the fans like that before. There's so many memories, man. Oh my God, so many memories running for the
Beautiful.
national team. As an athlete, we experienced.
I'm
And
going to I'm going to draw you out a little bit in closing, but you're a
yeah,
quarter miler. The 400
yeah.
Jamaica's rich legacy in track and field started with the 400 meters at the 1948 Olympic Games, where Jamaica won a quinilla with Mr. Arthur Wint and Herb McKinley.
Herb McKinley, yeah.
4 years later, Jamaica came back and ran a quinilla at the 1952 Olympic Games, this time with Mr. George Roden and Herb McKinley
And Herb
again.
McKinley, yeah.
19
George upset Herb, right?
Herb, yes, he
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Herb was
yeah.
actually leading on the straight, and George upset him
Run
close
time,
to the
yeah,
finish
yeah,
line. Yeah.
yeah.
1983 at the first World Championship, Bert
Bert Cameron, yeah.
Cameron became the first world champion over 400 meters. You are a quarter miler. That's where we started. We are now struggling to have a 400-meter team. Do you think we can ever go back to where we started? Your thoughts in closing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We had a good trials this year. You know, a couple of guys ran 44 in the semi and in the finals. And I could tell you this, the US is going to have a very difficult time beating that Jamaica 4x4 team
You think
in
so?
Budapest. Absolutely. I
Listen,
don't think so.
America
I know
knows
so.
how to win the 4x4. I swear.
They know how to win, but I think this is the first time. If we're judging off the trials, what happened this
Yeah.
past weekend, I think Jamaica has some firepower. You know what I mean? And if all the guys could go into the championship in form, and we have enough bodies, you know, because I know we have the mixed relays, we have the 4x4 heats, and we have guys running the 400. I think we might need to bring some extra people. You know what I mean? And I think if everybody go there in form, I think it's going to be a battle. I think this is the year. Last year we came second, but if you look at the Americans, they're not at their strongest this year.
True.
They're not at their strongest. Two of their best quarter milers is not running the 400 anymore. Michael Norman, Fred
Norman, yeah.
Curley, you know, you know. So their 400 hurdler. I mean, their top two guys match up with our top two guys. You know what I mean? And then we have some 44 high guys in there. It's going to be a battle. Trust me.
And
It's not going to be.
I have to big up Davian Clark on this one, because he's the former coach of Sean Bailey,
Sean Bailey
who is
and
Veronica's
Powell, right?
brother, and Powell, Javon Powell.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
coached them up to last season. So
Last
you're
year,
right.
yeah.
We are looking a little better, but I would love to see us doing a little bit more in the 400, knowing that was where we started, because those two Olympics in 1948 and 1952, we actually upset the Americans.
The Americans, yeah.
Yeah. And they finished third behind us. But in closing, I want you to give the youngsters a little pep talk before we go.
All right. So to all the young athletes who aspire to be great, be dedicated, be committed, be a student of the sport. Not everyone is going to make it to the Olympics. Not everyone is going to make it to the World Championship, but be the best athlete you could be. And by that, I mean being dedicated to the sport, trust in yourself, trust in your coach, your team, and more than anything else, believing in yourself that you could be great.
Sanjay AYRE, thank you very much for stopping by and chatting with me. Yes, you've said a whole lot, and even the people on the live who are watching, they have nothing but love for you. Nadine Barif, Sharon Bailey, Sandy British, Marlene Green, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Our own Olympian, one of our many gems. I call our athletes the Jamaican track and field gem. So, Sanjay Gem, big up yourself, and thank you very much for stopping by. And I'm going to talk to you off the air about something, but thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks
for stopping by. Good night, guys. Have a great night wherever you are. A great morning, a great afternoon. Thanks for stopping by.
Good night.
Good night.